You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 150. Woohoo! The Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. With me, my partner in crime, Jessica Szilagyi.
Thanks for using my real name.
Your real name?
Yeah.
Instead of what?
Statesboro, Strangler, Savannah, whatever. I can't even keep them straight.
Well, if somebody would do some mean tweets. It's been the holidays, so the mean tweets have been kind of slow lately.
I know. How unacceptable is that?
I know. I mean, I really need some new insults. I mean, they can't really come from me.
At least not well. I'll let the people know, though. It's good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Yeah. Did you guys have a nice holiday season?
We did. Christmas morning. Now, one of my nephews wanted a basketball goal, and I told you this. So we got him a real basketball goal. Is what he wanted. He's 7. So, of course, he wanted it set up immediately. There's 20 degrees outside. My brother and I are out there putting a damn basketball goal together.
Nice.
Like, I'm trying to tell him, son, it's too cold to play and there are too many cars in the driveway. Just put it up. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, you can't put kids off on that. You had to know he was going to be chomping at the bit to get out there.
Yeah, I should have put it together and then take it in 2 pieces over there in my truck or something.
Yeah.
Put it together when it was 60 out instead of waiting for it to be 20. That'd have been smart, but smart's just not me.
Well, it's okay.
How about you? How did the dogs do this holiday season?
They did just fine. My mom spoils them rotten, of course. So she came down, and she came to Statesboro for Christmas, which it was freezing here, but she came toting jackets for them and treats and all kinds of things. And she doesn't have a favorite, but I think she's a favorite dog for different reasons. And she just spoils them. I will teach them not to do something, and then she's like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. She was feeding Stanley cherry pie on, the day after Christmas. I'm like, and she's like, he wanted some. He's sitting here begging. Well, right. He's not supposed to beg. So don't enable him by giving him pie, but it's okay. Also,
whatever she puts in, you have to clean up.
True. But Stanley, after living outside and becoming a darling from the streets, he's used to eating trash. So he's got a stomach that's pretty solid. So thankfully nobody got sick or anything. And she wasn't she was giving him crust and stuff like that had cherry flavoring on it. But still, the point was that he wasn't supposed to be begging. And she's like, but look at him.
Yeah. I don't feed other people's dogs.
Well, for grandchildren.
I know. I mean, even my brother's dogs and stuff, I don't feed other people's dogs.
Yeah.
Because they know. They're just like you. They got 3 dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And they know this dog can handle this dog can handle that, this dog, And you can always tell the dogs that you get young, or you get from a breeder, or you get from somebody who loved them, because they're not food aggressive. And of course, you find, the dogs you get from the pound are food aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
I need to eat what I can get now because I may not eat tomorrow.
That's right.
But I think that is a survival instinct, that sweet begging and all that stuff. I think that's a survival instinct from when we domesticated them from wolves.
Oh, and I mean, we were talking about it before the show. Stanley is a very thankful dog. I mean, he doesn't, he backs up and lets the girls do, take priority and get water first or things like that. But when it's time to eat, he knows where he's supposed to sit. He knows which bowl is his, and he doesn't mess around. He won't talk to you until he's done. So,
does he go and sing "Food, Glorious Food"?
He does. Yes, Dave, he does.
Please, Mom, may I have some more?
Yeah.
I believe is a misquote. I think is "I want some more." So, news across the country. Traders boost bets against the dollar the highest in almost a decade.
I mean,
Speculative traders are ending the year doubling down on their bets against the U.S. dollar.
not surprising to anyone, right? I mean, obviously.
Not anybody who's been observing the markets and what's going on, for sure.
Yeah. But we haven't talked about the market in a while, so I figured why not start the year off on a depressing note?
I don't necessarily think it's depressing. It's just, it is what it is. When you see the Dow up like it is, and you see gold up, and gold is your indicator of inflation, and prices are up, you're not making more money. Your dollar's weaker. And you could have predicted it when you saw the Fed just pumping money into the economy. That the economic impact they're trying to push off from COVID, they're trying to kick the ball down the road. And honestly, when you have these giveaways, the $1,200, now the $600 they want to raise to $2,000, all that does is increase prices.
Sure.
I mean, you can't find a decent TV right now. Everybody's, well, besides it being just after Christmas. I know this because I'm shopping for a decent TV still. It just hasn't, through the holidays, just wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, there's really nothing to watch, and other than football, and I will have one for the bowl games because that's what's important in my life.
Of course.
Not the weakening U.S. dollar. But in the end, who does it hurt? It hurts the person that is on a fixed income, the person the people the politicians claim to care about. Those are the ones that are most affected. The guy who has a variable income like I do, where when my prices go up, I increase prices to my customers. It's just the way it is. Well, when I get good deals, I can offer good deals to my customers. Just the way it is. I can pass that along. The person that's hurt is the end user, the person that's on salary. Yeah, the folks that are on retirement, where their retirement doesn't go up. Pensions, anyway. Obviously, if your 401k is invested in the market, it has at least paced with inflation. You hope.
Yeah.
The gauge of U.S. currency has fallen over 6% this year as investors turned against the greenback amid unprecedented monetary easing from the Federal Reserve and moved money away from haven assets. Now, you and I were talking before the show about mortgage prices. Money's free. And the result of that is just higher house prices.
Yeah. I mean, land and house prices are up too. I mean,
I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he recently moved back from Missouri, and he's thankful to be back from Missouri. And he was looking at building. He was going to pick up some land and build. And building right now, this is not land. This is not utilities. If you buy 40 acres and the reason people buy 40 acres and put their house right on the road is because of utility costs.
Yeah.
So without any of that, you're talking about $180 a square foot. And that's nothing special. That's builder grade, plain walls, all the stuff that as a husband, your wife might come in and pull the catalog out and go, ooh, well, look at these countertops. They're only $500 more. Look at these cabinet doors are much nicer. They're only a couple $100 more. All that stuff adds up. So the $180 a square foot, which is up from about $100 a square foot 3 years ago. That's largely because of the shortage of builders, because they can make so much money building neighborhoods than custom houses. But these neighborhoods are popping up at $500,000 around here because money's free. You're not getting any more house than you did 5 years ago. You're getting the exact same house for the exact same payment that you got 5 years ago. But now you have a price tag of $500,000 instead of $300,000.
Congrats.
Right. Well, this is a very similar bubble to what we had. And
so you think we're headed for a worse burst or about the same, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's about the same. I think it's going to start in the cities. And it already has started in the cities. Because of the urban flight, especially from places like New York, states like California, where the taxes are so oppressive. And honestly, in New York, California, the COVID restrictions are so oppressive that they're moving out of the city. They're getting away from the de Blasios of the world. Because you can't do anything. If you're a restaurant owner, you can't operate a restaurant in New York City right now.
Wow. Thanks, government.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we talked about it last week or not, but you can't dine in a restaurant, but you could dine outside in a tent with heaters and circulating fans in a restaurant. Now you're dining outside, but you're inside. The type of walls have changed, but the exposure has not.
And I think we're headed for worse on that front just because of the recent surge and
a callback from last week. There's going to be a huge bust in rental properties. Because when the bills finally come due, all these rental properties, they're either going to end up going back to the bank. These renters are going to be put on the street. Rent is out of control. I mean, apartments are even around here, and I'm in Dallas, but Kennesaw stuff. I saw a new 1-bedroom apartment for like $1,200 or $1,500 a month. 1 bedroom in an apartment.
That's insane.
It is insane. It's
unreasonable, honestly.
It is, but they're renting it, and they were renting it. But we're going to see. I think we're going to see a burst in that. We're going to see high eviction rates. We're going to see people on the streets looking for low end rentals. People with plummeting credit scores. Because when an eviction finally comes through, it's going to hit them on their credit score. It's going to hit them on their public records. They've been evicted. They have open collections, open liens against them. So that's going to be a big thing, I think. And that's again in the cities. All these rent controlled apartments that haven't been able to collect rent. Hey, buddy, you're now 10 months past due, and the government's not protecting you anymore. Pay up or get out. Of course, then they'll be asking for another bailout, right?
Yes.
Last quote on this is, we see depreciation in the dollar continuing into 2021, the Goldman team said.
No kidding.
What's that?
No kidding. I mean, that's like the least conclusive. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, hell, I can say stuff like that. And Goldman, give me a call. I'm available. I'm not cheap, but I'm available. Same thing I said to Story coming up later with a lot of the politicians. I'm available, and I can help you with this, but I'm not cheap. American youth too flabby to defend the nation.
I love
retired journalists say.
I love the headline. Yes, it caught my attention. So props to the author because, caught my attention.
The organization known as Mission Readiness wants the Pentagon to help set up an interagency committee to address what it considers the nation's military recruiting crisis. They recently sent a letter to Acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller, urging him to work with heads of other relevant federal departments and agencies to take a holistic approach to addressing issues ultimately impacting the ability of the military to recruit personnel. Now, what the hell is the Secretary of Defense going to do about civilians?
Well, keep reading. I mean, they said that they want to have a committee that includes executive branch departments from Department of Justice, Education, and Agriculture to, I guess, like recruit. I guess from the, and I'm not saying this right, but I think from the Department of Education standpoint, it would be maybe trying to groom people from an earlier age so that they don't get into a position where they're disqualified and they can't undo it.
According to the Department of Defense, 71% of young Americans are unable to serve in uniform largely due to obesity, drug use, a poor education, or a crime record. The group of retired generals and admirals said an interagency advisory committee made up of, just like you said. Yeah, okay. All right.
Can we talk about the 71% first? Because that is I was shocked by that number. I did not think it was that high. Has it always been that high?
I don't know.
There's no way.
Well, of course not. I mean, kids coming out of the Depression weren't fat.
Wow, Dave, way to just land that plane. That's not what I meant. I meant from poor education, a crime record, and drug abuse. I mean, I'm sure that.
Well, poor education is a new thing. Now, when I say new, I'm talking the last 50 years. Mm-hmm. Kid joining in World War I who had a 5th grade education. I mean, I don't even know what education Alvin York had. It may have been a 3rd grade education. That his job wasn't high tech. Bad guys over there, let's go get them. And I understand that the demands of the modern military are much higher than they were in World War I, World War II. Even your what many people think of as your foot soldier, your infantryman, has got a computer on him. But poor education doesn't mean stupid. And they have standardized tests to figure that out. There's an ASVAB that you can take and figure these things out. I think we need to see if there are several cures to this that the military is not going to take my advice on.
Let's hear it.
1, as far as poor education, offer more waivers. Kids that score high enough in the ASVAB, offer a program after basic training before AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training, and every branch has their own term for it, that addresses some of that. Have a different assessment test. We need to increase waivers. If we have kids that dropped out of school, we need to figure out why. 2, crime, or for criminal records. Again, waivers. It depends on if you get caught 16 years old for fighting, it's a behavioral issue that can be addressed. Now, obviously, if you've got a kid who's spending time in juvie for stabbing another kid in the eye, maybe he can go to the Marines. But a lot of these things can be addressed. Now, there are bad seeds that needs to go into screening. So for these waivers that we have kids with a criminal background, or I say kids, it could be adults with a criminal background, to figure out what the crime was. Was it a simple possession crime? What is it? Is it DUI? Well, let's get a waiver. A DUI is, if we have a kid who's 22 years old, has had 4 DUIs, that's an issue that's probably not going to be addressed by military discipline. I can't even talk. Military discipline. But we have a kid who made a mistake. Waiver. Let's get him in. If they test all right, if everything else looks good, get him a waiver.
Well, and I mean, I know the movies aren't real life, but what didn't it used to be like if you got in trouble or if you got in with the bad crowd or something that that this was a pathway for you?
Okay, a friend of mine's uncle got caught bootlegging. So this was an older guy. Got caught bootlegging. His Marine recruiter went with him to court. The judge said something to the effect of, if I send him with you, will he be back in my county in a year? He goes, if he comes back, it won't be in a year. And this is a time of war. Mm-hmm. And the judge was like, okay, he's yours. But people are so reluctant to do that now, and we become such a criminal society. Throw the book at them. Throw the book at them. Where we don't want to rehab these kids. And look, military is a great opportunity for kids who may have had not a great background. A kid who may have gotten into gangs. And it's a great escape because it's going to take you out of your environment and put you in another.
Yeah, I was kind of looking. I mean, if you told me that 71% of young Americans weren't able to serve, I would suspect that there was a percentage of these reasons. But honestly, I think it's because we're raising such weak generations of kids. I mean, I see kids at the mall or just around, and I'm like, there's no way that they are mature enough. I mean, I understand that even in war times and when we had the draft and all these other things, that they were children, that they weren't developed, but they were tougher. Like life was tougher, so they were tougher. They weren't coddled to the same degree that they are now.
Well, in recruiting goals, there's a couple problems with it. One is free college, and these kids aren't necessarily learning anything in these colleges. And I'm not talking about somebody who's going to UGA, going to UF, going to Harvard. I'm talking about some of these 2-year programs that kids just kind of go in as a placeholder to mature. And the military is a great place to go mature. Lowe's boy, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do with your life? I don't know. And so he decided to join the Air Force. He'll get a great skill. He's getting a chance to grow up, be away from mom and dad, and honestly 6 siblings, and go and be a man. And that's really good for him. But I think there's also a resistance. There's also been a societal resistance to this idea. It has really been pushed by the left in the last 20 years, is that only poor, stupid people join the military. That it's a dumping ground for America's poor. That we raise these poor kids up, they go to public school, they're not smart enough for college, so we just dump them in the military. Give them to the Army, give them to the Marines, give them to the Navy. Air Force, I gotta be a little smarter to be in the Air Force. So the societal thing with that, the whole Mike Rowe dirty jobs thing, where if you don't study hard, you can end up with a job that has your name on your shirt, as if that's a bad thing. So military is having the same problems that the trades are having with it. Now, the obesity thing. I think we need to separate kids who are physically unable, bad back, bad knees, bad heart, some sort of defect that's going to make them incapable of serving. So we take that. That's a very small percentage. Okay, we got some fat bodies out there. Why not institute an additional 4 weeks of basic training for those kids, a train up to basic training, where they've got a month, and you don't necessarily have to make height weight, but you need to be able to do the minimum push-ups, sit-ups, but whatever the standard's going to be, that they have a chance to ramp up that. And military is so focused on a BMI index, a measurement between height, your weight, your girth, and your neck size is your stomach and your neck is where the Army used to do it. They're so hung up on that you could have a perfect 300, which is a perfect PT score at the time that I was in. And if you were a 0.5% over, you were in trouble. You couldn't get promoted. And I got taped, is what it's called, every time, because I never made weight in the Army. Never once. But I always taped out. Because the standard for me, I think, at the time, because I'm 6'1", was like 187 pounds. And my fighting weight was around 225. And it was a very different 225. And almost every guy I knew and that I knew was like that. I mean, obviously there were some rails who never had to worry about it. But all these guys had big arms, big necks, big shoulders, and they all had to get taped out. It's a ridiculous standard to say that this kid is 5 pounds too heavy, he can't come in. Well, you're going to lose it in basic. Or have some sort of program to bring them in as a E1, and they have 4 weeks to get within whatever standard they want to be the minimum to move on. If basic training is done right, you're going to drop weight.
That's fair. I agree with that.
Actually, my father gained weight in basic training because he grew up pretty poor and he had never seen so much food in his life. I think he went in like 140 pounds or something like that, came in at 155. Something ridiculous like that. Like he was just a rail. I did not grow up poor. Didn't grow up rich, but we always had plenty of food, so I had to lose a little weight in basic training, which wasn't a problem. It happened. Yeah, you run 5 miles in the morning every day. That happens. So I don't mean to dominate the subject.
No, I think it's good points, and I think we've changed other professions, even law enforcement and firefighting and things of the sort, when there were recruiting issues or obviously theirs was a lot had to do with lawsuits and things. But I mean, we have changed standards before, and I don't know that it's just standards for entry, which is kind of where you ended your point. You know, it's not standards for performance or once you're in there, and they're going to mold you into who they want or need you to be. But if we are 71% of people can't get in, then what? And we need if we need more. But there's been a recruitment problem for a long time.
There's also a retention problem. They will fatten you out of the Army. Now, think about this. If you're a mechanic and you're overweight, and the examples that I've seen are marginally overweight, but you can't get your weight down, but you're a mechanic, or you're a data processing, or you're a drone pilot. You're a drone pilot back in Colorado, flying remotely, and you're overweight. Now, I've got a good friend of mine who is an excellent intel analyst. He actually went over to the Coast Guard as an intel analyst. He worked in a hole at night, midnight shift, and he analyzed flyover and satellite imagery. Excellent intel analyst. And he was so good, they wanted him to teach at the school, at the academy. So, and he had he liked donuts. He was a pudgy guy. He was like me. He was always getting taped out and just barely making it and all that stuff. Super, super, super smart guy. Well, the first time they saw him put on his, I don't know what the hell they call their Class Bs, I guess, whatever service uniform coasties wear. And they see him walking into class, his guts hanging over his belt and all that stuff. They immediately started pushing him out of the Coast Guard. And it was because he was seen. As long as he was staying in his dank hole and doing his job, no one cared what he looked like. His intel was good.
Right.
But they pushed his ass out. Because he was, I mean, and he's not civilian fat. I like to make that distinction. When I say someone's army fat or they're something like that, that's not civilian fat. That's not somebody that you look out of the street and go, "You fat bastard." That's what everybody else would be like. Oh, that's a little bit of that's a dad bod. That's in now. No, it is not in the military. At least not until you make senior NCO or your senior officer. But anyway, I want to belanger the point of the military. Will the focus on tech lead to another roaring 20s?
No.
2020? No.
Anyway, go ahead.
2020 saw a collection of remarkable technology breakthroughs, including the mRNA vaccine for COVID-19 and advances in AI language generation.
So the argument is that, like, people having to stay home and rely on technology and advance technology quickly, obviously also the vaccine, but, you know, from everything from Zoom to Zoom competitors to products that could help stream and you know, help people work remotely, everything. There was a rush to produce all of it. And so there's speculation that they're going to kick off the rest of, or I guess we did kick off the 20s with all these technological advances. And I just, I don't see it. I mean, we could have a whole show, and maybe we should, and with some guests that are smarter than we are about the AI progressions and where that's headed, because it's kind of been under the radar, puns intended, through all of this. People haven't really been paying attention because the news cycle is all about politics and COVID. But I think we are headed for a more technological world. Smart houses. People have apps to control their lights and their blinds and everything. They don't ever have to get up or touch anything. But there's a cost in that. And, you know, the 20s didn't end that. The roaring 20s didn't end that well. I mean.
No, it didn't. I was kind of thinking the same thing. Here's the thing. The 20s were built on employment, first of all. large employment because buildings were going up, and the advances in technology were manufacturing. It was New York was built in the 20s, so this boom was largely bottom up. And I'm not a huge pro-labor guy. I'm not anti-labor, I'm like organized labor. But it was built on the back of working people. And of course, the big guys benefited. And that's the way it is. The people that risk the capital obviously benefit the most, as they should. But the employment was so high. The bread bowl was just turning out food. Farmers were doing as well as farmers had ever done historically. So across the country, you had, I won't say, it wasn't a boom in Topeka, Kansas, but the guys in Topeka, Kansas that were bringing their crops in and able to sell were doing better than their daddy did. I don't see the same thing. I see the AI advances as kind of the contrary. I see the lean towards Zoom as a move away from these big buildings.
That's right.
And I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying the booms are totally different. Zoom also means I don't have to get in a metal tube full of people and fly at 3/4 the speed of sound across the country to sit down with somebody and have a meeting. So and I'm not saying that Zoom is bad or don't invest in Zoom. Actually, I wish I invested in Zoom in March. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying it's a different thing, and comparing the two is disingenuous. This article, I'm not just saying that you wrote this, but I think it's a disingenuous thing to say that, well, because this technological boom, it's going to be like the roaring 20s. Well, how the hell did that work out for us in the 90s?
Well, and like I said, it comes at a cost. What is the cost of doing everything by Zoom? Well, you don't have business lunches. You don't have, like you said, you're not flying to meet people. So you don't have couples extending a Thursday meeting into the weekend for a long weekend where they're dining out and shopping and going to shows and staying at a hotel. I mean, you don't have any of these things that are service industry oriented, because all the things that you have are people who are in a dark room working on software and IT. And don't get me wrong, I love those people, and like I rely on those people a lot, especially Eric writing for an online news organization that relies on all of those things. It's important. But the other thing about some of these advancements, like you were talking about, you're not only eliminating jobs, which is probably inevitable to some degree, you're just eliminating human interaction in a time where human interaction is discouraged anyway. And I don't see how that is going to boom.
Yeah, I don't see the boom out of it. I don't necessarily see the evil. And look, somebody used to make buggy whips. And you don't see very many buggy whip factories anymore. So that sort of stuff changes. And that's the automation argument. When you see automation
with the buggy, I got to interrupt you for a second though. With the buggy whips though, wouldn't that person adapt to make something else?
That's exactly right. But that's the automation argument. Is when you have machines doing stuff, you have to have someone fix the machines. I don't know what the AI is going to do for a boom. I think we're going to see a lot more industries not come back as well. I don't think airlines will ever come back as well. I don't think hotels will ever come back as well. And honestly, I don't think restaurants are going to come back as well because of the travel stuff. And you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head with I've got a Thursday meeting. I'm going to go ahead and bring my wife with me. And we're going to stretch this out to a long weekend. Mm-hmm. And we've done that several times. Training in Miami. I'll fly down there with you. We'll hang out for the weekend. Or I've got a class in New York, or I've got a class in Chicago. Really? Are the Braves are in town? Yeah, I'll go up there with you. We'll catch a game after you have to get out of your meeting. That kind of stuff, and there's a definite economic impact. Now, will business travel go away? Of course not. You are still a boss. Still is going to have to fly into a factory or whatever else and go and address his subordinates. Because there's an impact that a boss has. Plus, putting boots on the ground, it's a lot different from looking at a spreadsheet. So that stuff's not going away. I just don't think you're going to have the Bill Murray up in the air a million milers anymore that are going from town to town to town to town selling stuff. A lot of that's going to be done on Zoom, and you may fly in for the closing, but you can do everything else online, which that was never possible before. Even with an email, it was never really possible to do that. Phone calls were too impersonal. Conference calls are impersonal. But Zoom's a little more personal. I don't like Zoom. I'm damn sick of it.
I never liked it.
Me neither. Look, I'm not paying attention half the time. I'm on a Zoom call. The dog's puking. I'm going to pause myself on the Zoom call, and this actually happened. Go take care of the dog that's puking. Or you got kids that are running in the background, or your spouse is behind the screen waving, asking, "Hey, what do you want for dinner?" Whatever else. So I think a lot of that has an effect on the impact of a interpersonal relationship or a meeting. But hey, these are our opinions, and not necessarily those of All on Georgia, and certainly not those of any All on Georgia reporter not offering commentary on this very show. On to Georgia. Georgia election news. More than 27% of Georgia's registered voters had already cast ballots in the Senate runoffs as of last Monday.
It's a lot.
Holy shnikey.
Yeah. Especially given the holidays and just kind of the confusion over when things are open and not. And I mean, I just feel like that's a lot.
27% is a huge turnout for 27% is a huge turnout for a runoff anyway, period.
Right.
If you got 27% of registered voters that voted in runoff, you would consider that a pretty heavy turnout.
And I don't think this will be like election day where we see turnout kind of taper because so many people voted early or absentee. I think because of the stakes, I guess, and the way that they're offering rides to the polls and vouchers to the polls and all of that, I think it's going to hold steady. And there's, 7 p.m. on the 5th, we're just going to see a crap ton of people vote.
Yep. So Senators Loeffler and Perdue go to bat for Skylar Mack.
Boo!
If you don't recognize the name, Skylar Mack is the 18-year-old college student from Georgia currently detained in the Cayman Islands. After pleading guilty to violating the COVID-19 quarantine restrictions on December 4th, Mack was sentenced to serve 40 hours of community service and pay a fine of $2,600 by the summary court. Her initial sentence was revised to a 4-month imprisonment from the Grand Court of the Cayman Islands on December 15th. Following an appeal, Ms. Mack's sentence was reduced to 2-month imprisonment by the Cayman Island Court of Appeals on December 22nd. Cue outrage over young white girl in trouble overseas.
That's my commentary, obviously. Okay. I think it's important to, there's been a whole lot of, this is one of those where I have gotten caught up in arguing with people on other pages, like on WSB and, I don't know, like the Gainesville Times, and just because I see stupid comments and I'm like, gosh, they are so wrong. I don't really want to let them just be wrong. I need to tell them that they're wrong. And then people end up arguing about whether or not COVID restrictions are actually laws and this, that, and the other. And this is the thing that I come back to, and I feel pretty sure that you come back to. It doesn't matter if it's a law or regulation or an order. When you're in another country, you follow the rules. And because you know that you don't have the same rights that we have here. And it doesn't really matter if you have the entire world lobbying for you. Remember, what was it, Amanda Knox in Italy? Remember what happened to her?
Mm-hmm.
She got railroaded in front of the entire world. And she had no, if that wasn't a glaring example, and you were a little bit more sensitive about this, so I'll let you chime in before we go on. But I just, like, it doesn't matter what it was about, whether she stole money or she was driving on the wrong side of the road or whatever the offense was, is not, to me, is not, it doesn't matter.
Oh, there was a kid a few years ago who got caned. I can't remember where he was, Malaysia or someplace like that, for littering. And Americans were outraged. But look, man, you're overseas. I'm an American? I have a right to an attorney? Look, and I travel overseas more than the average American, not as much as many people do. I make sure I check out the laws. And I mean down to the customs. Like, there are certain places that are more formal than others, that you don't wear shorts. Like, you don't wear shorts to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Bermuda is one of those places where you can wear shorts around, but you wear pants to dinner or something like that. Hence the term Bermuda shorts. But there are customs and things you look up. One, not to be an ugly American. It's not, you look up tipping customs, you look up the laws. If I'm flying to Dubai and I like to drink, I need to check and see what the laws are in Dubai and the different Arab Emirates, if that's what I'm going to do. And actually, I was curious one day about that. I looked it up, and they do allow drinking in Dubai by non-Muslim visitors. Drunkenness is not permitted. A lot of other things. And I think there's a couple in the UAE that got in trouble for having sex on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And they take indecency very seriously over there. So that's stupid. The thing that I thought that you say I had more sympathy for, her 26-year-old boyfriend lives there. He's a resident. He may be a citizen there. And I guarantee he's the one. And look, if I was 18 years old and I had some hot 26-year-old chick that's like, nah, Dave, they're not enforcing it. Don't worry. You're with me. You'll be fine. We're hanging out with my friends. We'll be fine. We're going to a local place. No one's going to know. So I kind of sympathize with her making the poor decision, but that doesn't mean that, one, the U.S. needs to get involved at all, because she's not being abused. If this is something where she's being railroaded, she's being abused, then that's when you get the embassy involved. Secondly, these two senators need to shut the hell up. And I don't know who's advising their campaigns. I have no idea. One, I don't think the story resonates. I don't think this is going to win them any votes, or lose them any votes for that matter.
It just is. It just happened. It just is. Like, she did something wrong and she admitted to it. What they're mad about is that, just like in the United States, you can agree to a plea and a judge can reject it, or a sentencing, or however. I mean, the state in this case did not like the sentence, and so they appealed it, which is why it got the 4 months. And then they, obviously with the 2 months, that's meeting kind of halfway. But that happens here.
Well, let me ask you something. Would the world care if it was a guy?
No. They would say serves him right, and it'll probably toughen him up a little bit. Like, 2 months in prison, and he's going to come out a different guy. But he won't do that again.
Would the world care if she was not pretty?
No, it wouldn't even be news.
Right. So if it was some cross-eyed chick with a smile like a picket fence,
Dave,
I'm just saying. I'm saying it's no one would care. It wouldn't make the news. But the fact is, you see a picture. Now I say newspaper because I'm old, but you're scrolling your local news source, all on Georgia, and you see a picture of a pretty girl that says imprisoned. You're like, well, what happened?
Well, hold on. Because yes, that's what they're doing. But initially, she's 18, but the headlines were all about a teen imprisoned or sentenced to prison. And then in the article, her family's lawyer from here talked about her being just a kid. And, they definitely, she was mature enough to travel to an island alone with her adult boyfriend. But now that she's in trouble, she's an innocent child.
Right. And we throw 18-year-olds in jail here all the time. We don't call a 16-year-old gangbanger a kid.
Well, some people do, but
I do. A kid makes some wrong decisions, and he's going to come out of prison a real criminal. But we judge on looks, and the fact that it's a girl, it gets everybody upset. Teenage girl imprisoned in the Cayman Islands. Like, well, what the hell happened? What'd she do? Over COVID? Well, yeah, I think it's ridiculous, but I'm not a resident of the Cayman Islands. If I were, maybe I'd have some impact on the way they work their laws.
Well, and arguably, what if? Because the senator's letter, it said we're not trying to understate the impacts of COVID. However, we're asking for leniency and all this stuff. Well, in asking for leniency because of her breaking an order, which they're clearly trying to make an example of her. And while we don't agree that that's what the law is supposed to be used for here in the United States, they can do whatever they want there. They could also say that, Americans are so smug and disobedient that we're just not going to let them come to our country until this clears.
She knew the rules. Or at least they were disclosed to her. I guarantee you, when you land, they give you a list of the rules. And I don't know how she got caught. I don't know the story. I don't know if she posted on social media, if she got stopped and someone's like, let me see your passport. You haven't been here long enough. What are you doing out? I don't know if she wasn't wearing it. I don't know what it was. I know there was a pilot in Hawaii that got popped. And I really think this is unconstitutional because it's in the United States. But usually flight crews are ignored for COVID stuff because, they have to go out and eat.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was on social media taking selfies at different places and tourist spots.
That's stupid.
When you fly to Hawaii, you get some downtime because we don't ask our pilots to do 2 8-hour direct flights back to back. So you have some downtime and you go so he's getting pictures of him in front of different stuff and posting on social media, and they popped him.
Yeah.
Because it's stupid. Because criminals are stupid. It's not saying the guy's a criminal, but people are stupid.
Well, and I just am not interested in taking advice on the criminal justice system at all from Kelly Loeffler, Miss I Hate Defense Attorneys, because look what the commercials and the mailers she sent out about Doug Collins defending people who have constitutional rights. I have zero appreciation for her commentary on this after her Law and Order tweets constantly for the last 8 months and retweets of Trump's Law and Order. And on top of that, if you're going to meddle in something that actually has constitutional undertones, like perhaps, I don't know, the fact that the Chief Justice in the state of Georgia continues to suspend jury trials and violate people's constitutional right to a speedy trial, and allowing people to sit in crowded jails but say that they can't sit on juries. Let me think here for a second. Neither of these things are in their purview as senators. But if you're going to once again meddle outside of your little box, at least do it for something that's, I don't know, worthwhile, or for innocent people who haven't admitted to doing wrong.
Right. And you know what? At a certain point, and we've talked about this before with bail reform, when you're just locked up, you just go ahead and say, would you call the prosecutor on a plead?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I go ahead and plead, they go ahead and mar my record. I've been in here so long that I can just plead to time served. When you're faced with a crime that could put you in jail for a month, you're there for 6 months because you can't afford bail, and you can't get your trial to defend yourself. Now, back on the subject, current polling averages have Perdue ahead of Ossoff by the slimmest of margins, 47.9 to 47.8, and Warnock ahead of Loeffler by 1% of 48.3 to 47.3.
How about that? I mean, I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised that Perdue has an edge. I mean, he has a presence. She just has a stock market portfolio.
Man, I bet she's one of the nicest people in the world, but she cannot relate to save her damn life. I think both sides are making a huge mistake by running together.
They don't have a choice, though. I mean, they really don't. Because
yeah, they do.
I don't think they do. Because look at what Trump's doing. He's constantly around the clock saying, I want, not forcing them, but like putting them in a position to vote on stimulus stuff and then coming back and saying, like, they need it to be signed and yet he's like, I want $2,000. So now they're going to have to vote on it again, which, I mean, it's just,
But when they wire together like that, look, I don't think Warnock is as dangerous as Ossoff. And the reason I say that is whoever wins that seat has to immediately start running for re-election. So Warnock kind of has to toe the line for a year and a half till he starts running for re-election.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he's as dangerous as Ossoff, who, if he wins, has got 6 years. So I can decide that I'm going to go ahead and hold my nose and vote for Perdue and sit out the Loeffler race. But when you wire yourselves together and you start sharing signs, when you become one person, Perdue Ossoff, I think it's problematic to independent-minded voters who may dislike Perdue's lines, dislike it less than you do Ossoff, who has an absolutely punchable face. It has no place in the Senate. He has no place running for city council. But and decide that, I don't like Loeffler or Warnock, so I'm not going to vote in that race. I'm going to sit that race out. But when you wire yourselves together like that, you're going to get a lot of people that show up and who protest vote, show up and vote none of the above and leave.
I guess.
Or different places do have some runoffs in local races. But I think it's a mistake to really get into to wire yourself to any other candidate. It's not that we're running against each other. It's not that we're not endorsing each other. It's that I'm running my race, right? You're running your race. I see it all the time in the local races. I'll hear from somebody go, I'm really disappointed in so-and-so that he didn't endorse me. No, he's running his own race. We've been friends for 20 years. He's running his own race. You run your own race. You guys don't talk to each other. You guys are running your own race. I think there's an inherent risk with that. If I endorse Joe Blow, and he ends up, or I tie myself to him, and he ends up having some sort of scandal, gets caught with a Firefly girl, something like that. Now I'm tied to him. Now he's an anchor around my campaign. So there's an inherent risk especially with Perdue. Loeffler could come off and say something stupid. Perdue's a little more polished than that. He's less likely to come off with something just out of left field. But I think the same thing with Warnock and Ossoff. Is this stuff with Warnock and running over his wife's foot and stuff like that? If that actually does gain ground, now look, I don't know the truth in that. And a single event, and a angry wife yelling at the police, man. In a single event, there is something called the crazy woman effect. She just could be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying she is. I'm just saying I can't judge him based on that. I can judge him on everything he said. But Warnock could come off with end up getting indicted for something, and now it's going to sink Ossoff. So I think there's an inherent risk in tethering yourself to somebody. From a political standpoint, like I said, I am available to consult.
God help us.
We do have another story to get to, but I think we're going to hold it for next week.
Yeah.
As we're about to run long because Dave can't shut his damn mouth. Jessica, closing thoughts on this first show of 2021.
Yes. So there's lots of new laws that have taken effect, but I just wanted to remind everybody that you can rest easy because boxing, wrestling, and martial art associations and federations are all now under new state regulations. Physical therapists and PA assistants all have to submit to background checks in this FBI background checks, in the state of Georgia now. And the muscadine grape is now the official state grape of Georgia as of January 1. So if you were feeling like maybe 2021 wasn't going to be your year, it's the year for the muscadine grape. So, maybe it can be yours too. I don't know. Freaking legislature.
Physical therapists and physician's assistants have to submit to
I'm assuming this is because they want to do some sort of interstate compact where they allow people in times of need to go places and work, and it's like a reciprocity thing. They do it with lots of trades, but give me a break. I've never gone to a physical therapist and asked them, hey, did your background check come back clean?
Well, that's the thing. I would assume that if they're a sex offender, they're not going to be allowed to work in that field.
Well,
that's usually one of the damn conditions. Like, yeah, you have a problem touching people. Yeah, we're not going to put you in a position where you touch people. Tomorrow, as the show drops, is Election Day. If you have not voted and you don't want to, don't. But if you do feel the need to vote for a split government, please get out and vote. Get out early. All your information is available online. I assume by now anybody who listens to this show knows where the hell to go to vote, what time the stuff's open. So I'm just kind of saying this for because I'm supposed to as I guess a member of the podcast media. So for Jessica Szilagyi, for Eric Cumby, our editor, I'm Dave Roberts. Happy New Year and have a great week.